I think that's like a neat way to start it off, to be honest.
All right, cool. No problem. You ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. As always, I'm Fusion Phil with NexGenCAM, and this week I have special guest Al Whatmough from Autodesk. Keep in mind, everybody, I did just ask him 2 hours ago to do this with me, so in the event, he had to come off the farm from feeding the goats, the mascot of Fusion 360. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Al, and then Al, we're going to jump into these 5 questions. Go ahead and take it away.
Sounds good. So I guess you wanted me to introduce myself a little bit first. Happy to do that. If you don't know me or you don't know how to pronounce my last name, start with that. Al Whatmough, like what, mow the lawn. So that's how you pronounce it. My role, kind of in the middle between smart customers, better machinists than me, and development teams that are far smarter than me. I'm a machinist by trade. When I got into machining, actually, I got into it because I wanted to be home every night, see what I did at the end of the day, not spend my life behind a computer screen. Now I travel for a software company, make PowerPoints for a living. But it's a fun spot being in the middle here and trying to translate back and forth. So this kind of conversation is the kind of thing I should be able to do on a moment's notice. So we'll see if it goes okay.
100%. Some may say that if you were to look at our old videos here at NexGen, they may actually recognize your voice. Is that true?
That is true. Yeah, I got into this as a partner at NexGen, doing some of those early videos, and when Autodesk acquired HSM Works, I found a path forward to go from being an AE to leading the charge now, which is a lot of fun. And when I say lead, I'm just, again, get to represent some super smart people.
You're just the guy that takes the blame, right?
I take the blame, yeah.
Awesome.
Which is fine. It's all good.
Right? Awesome. So, I mean, obviously you're more than qualified to answer these questions. So let's jump into the very first question as a whole. What type of precision manufacturing does Fusion 360 support today as it sits as a product?
As it sits as a product today, primarily it's milling, 2 through 5 axis milling. This last year we did a lot of work to shore up the 5 axis capabilities. So primarily milling, pretty significant support for single turret, single spindle turning machines, although we've got a bunch of work there too to make it better. But primarily milling and turning. We've got a good amount of support for fabrication, water, laser, plasma, and good support for additive too. But you asked about precision manufacturing or machining.
Nonetheless, and so I do have a note here. What's the future look like tomorrow? I know our great friend Daniel Graham actually released a video talking about, is there mill turn simulation or something in the pipeline?
Is there mill turn simulation in the pipeline? Hold that thought. Let's see how your questions go, and maybe you can convince me to show a bit of a manufacturing roadmap.
Not a problem whatsoever. So I guess the next question is, you know, when you're working with trying to pick a CAM software, I guess, is the actual CAM software compatible with CAD software, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell us about that in Fusion? Is Fusion compatible? What is it compatible with, if you don't mind me asking?
Is it compatible with CAD? I think there's 2 questions when you ask that too. There's the question of, can I take designs from other places, so the finished part that you're creating, and import it into Fusion? Oftentimes, something like a destructive import is fine. If you bring an IGES file in and it doesn't need to change, that's the customer's import. Fusion obviously supports any of the common translators, whether it be native files from things like SolidWorks or neutral formats like Parasolid. Fusion also has what we call AnyCAD, and that allows for associativity between other CAD products. So the change can happen in a different CAD product and still parametrically update in Fusion. So that's an advantage. And obviously, there's a robust set of CAD tools in Fusion as a platform. So you can use the native tools. We think you'll have a better experience if you use the native tools, but you can obviously import and maintain associativity with other tools.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the power of Fusion to not only import CAD data, but I can also create my own CAD data in the event I wanted to make jigs and fixtures, or even start my design from a napkin and pass it right on through to the CAM package, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it as a machinist, using a standalone CAM product, and I used them in the past as a machinist, you ended up with a subset of CAD tools, just the few CAD tools you needed in order to get the basics of a CAM job done, which is often some surfacing for patching, some light sketching, maybe some light assembly to get vices on. But any CAM system has got some light CAD in it. In the case of building CAM for Fusion, we get the advantage of having a full-blown CAD system to do that design for manufacturing kind of thing, designing soft jaws, fixturing, any of that. And of course, many people just use Fusion for design, so it's a full-blown CAD system too.
Awesome. So you did say something that actually kind of piqued my interest, because I remember back in the day when I bought CAM software, translators costed money. Anytime I wanted to get a translator outside of the normal step file, I had to pay money. So in the world of Fusion, what does the pricing structure look like? I remember the days of maintenance fees, initial purchasing, no support unless you pay your fees type of model. How does Fusion's actual pricing structure work?
Fusion's pricing structure is set around access, so it is a subscription product. And you're trying to get access to technology. You're coming to us for technology, right? When we price, our goal is to make it as accessible to as many people as possible while supporting a business, right? So in terms of price and in terms specifically of translators, we want to make it easy to get your data in and out of the platform. There's not extra charges for translators. I suppose I should be transparent about we have it free for hobbyist personal users. We have limited the professional translators there, not because we don't want to have a community of those users, but we want to try and find some appropriate ways of making sure that true commercial users are paying, and the folks that want to make something in their garage have a way to do that. So that's the only place where there's a light barrier in translation. Other than that, any subscriber has access to all of the translators.
I tell you what, that reminds me of when they made that change to the translator. And although it did upset the community, it was amazing how fast Autodesk listened to the community, pushed out an update, made it right with everybody and anybody, that it was just exciting. When I was at Autodesk, nonetheless, when that all happened, I remember it very clear. But that leads me to my next question, which is...
If I can speak to that quickly too, I think I might as well. I think it's always good to start with why. I love the Simon Sinek videos and start with why. If you understand the why behind that change, yes, we wanted to make sure a community of makers, people in their garages, many of them are my friends down the street all over the place. We want them to still be able to make things, but we also want to have a forcing function to make sure that a true commercial user pays for the product. And so that was our why. If we got some of that wrong, we listened, because our intent didn't change. Our intent wasn't to monetize people in their garage. Our intent was to stop abuse, to be perfectly honest. And so it was easy to adjust when we figured out we got it wrong, and we'll get other things wrong. So we're all humans like me. Reach out to us.
Awesome. I love it. So that being said, though, is in the realm of the commercial license and the future of the product, what does really scalability look like? We have Industry 4.0, live machine connection, I guess, nowadays. Everybody's trying to get real-time reporting. That being said, what does the scalability of Fusion currently look like?
I'm super excited. I wish we could snap our fingers and do more faster. I think when you think about scalability, there's two sides to it. There's the one side of it of wanting to race to add more functionality to the product, and that's fun. And then the other side of it of making sure we finish what we started. And while we're doing that, are we building it in a way that we can scale? So that's really the balance we're constantly trying to do, is make sure we're not scaling so fast that we not finish what we started, but also make sure we're laying a foundation. Autodesk has supported making a number of acquisitions that give us a lot of puzzle pieces to put those things together. The more I talk here now too, you'd asked about roadmap and scalability. I'm wondering if maybe I shouldn't just show a deck. It's something I presented at Autodesk University a little while. We got more time, I can pull it up.
Yeah, you know what? We could go ahead and pull that up, but I have to ask, you say do more things faster. It feels like to me every 2 weeks, Fusion 360 is literally updating with new features. Me as a tech having to learn those is my biggest complaint, because my customers are on so far ahead of me that I'm having to help these guys with features I didn't even know were in the software.
It's a good point. I mean, years ago, a lot of the things that I would hear, and I've been a part of this Fusion Cam journey from the beginning. Years ago, you'd be hearing, well, it doesn't do what it should do yet. And now we're kind of hearing, I use it in production all the time. I love the new stuff, but slow it down a little bit. So you will find us make changes to how we release previews as an example. There's an insider community. Maybe you can put a link in the description or whatever, wherever it goes. We have an insider community, and you'll see us shift more and have that technology stay longer in the insider community there because largely Fusion does a large portion of what it needs to do. And we do need to kind of strike that balance a little different, but we want to keep moving fast. There's a lot we still need to do to help get this industry to Industry 4.0. And it's not just about pulling the different tools of CAM together. To me, that's just the start. That gives us a seat at the table.
So let me understand this right. I think we've heard you a couple times now say you were willing to give us a little bit of a sneak peek of something here. Is there a hypothetical roadmap that might show something we've already talked about a little bit?
I'm Yeah, I mean, there's stuff I can show. Yeah, it's Friday. Why not?
It's always on a Friday. As I always say at the end of the video, is it's Friday. Go drink that beer, get rested up for Monday morning, right? That or you're still out there on the shop floor pushing out parts. So hopefully they get out before close and you're not working later than you have to.
I guess it goes to show if you reach out on a Friday morning without a lot of preparation, you'll get me to think on my feet and do it.
I do have to admit though, you are on Pacific time. I'm on East time, so I'm closing in right now as we record this, about 19 minutes away from it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Well, I'm on Pacific time, but the truth is most of our development team is in Europe, so my day starts pretty early and starts winding down about now, especially on a Friday. Usually we're starting to wind things down a little bit about now because it starts 5:30, 4:30 in the morning kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what I can show. I know I'm okay showing this. If you came to Autodesk University, you would have seen it there. Other events I've shown large portions of this deck. That said, I think it's helpful to share, and probably some people that haven't seen it. I'm going to show this slide first. The purpose of this slide, it's a safe harbor. Autodesk is publicly traded. And we love to be transparent. It's a big part of what we like to do at Autodesk, but we can't be transparent in such a way that leads people like you, Phil, to sell futures. We don't want to sell futures. We want to be transparent about where we're heading so we can get feedback, but we don't want to be selling something the product doesn't do today. That's the balance. Nothing I'm saying here is a commitment. Even when I say we're working on stuff, sometimes we work on stuff and realize we failed and it never gets released. So I want to start by saying that's the purpose of this slide. It allows me to be a little more transparent, but also none of this is a commitment to anything in product. Fair?
Fair enough. So that being said, is no guarantees it comes out in Fusion.
No guarantee. And maybe that's because somebody watching this video gives us feedback that says we're on the wrong path. That might be why it doesn't come out, right?
That's why we have the insider track, and we'll definitely put a link down in the bio. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so I think this kind of the reason we started getting here is you asked about scalability and what's going on and what are we doing with Fusion, and really that's the whole point of what we're doing with Fusion is thinking in a scalable way. How do we fuse together all these different tools it takes to develop a product specifically inside of the group? I'm a part of Fuse together the tools that are required to manufacture the product, and there's many different technologies, and we want to get as many technologies as we can together. At the same time, we need to make sure we fully do it. If we can only half run your machine, the product's not very useful to you, right? So we want to have a wide product, but it needs to be deep as well. We think about this world of cleanly going from design to manufacturing, but the reality is you're bouncing between many different products. Some of them are from competitors, and that's fine. And that's why we spoke to a vision of ensuring that we allow folks to pick and choose the tools they want to use. But we also want to make sure we have a platform that's capable and has a better experience when you use all of the tools from us. So this is a reality of the world today, and it's likely to be an indefinite reality of the world. You're always going to have some tools that you choose to work with that you want to interact with whatever platform you've chosen to work on. I think this is where it gets a little more CAM focused and probably more relevant for your audience. This little pinwheel diagram is showing that the products that are within the purview of the manufacturing team that I get to represent. And what's fun is each one of these products has a different strength and some similarities, and that's both fun and a challenge. HSM Works, that's the first one we started with. That's how I joined Autodesk when I was part of selling HSM Works at NexGenCAM. That really helped Autodesk get a muscle memory of how we connect CAD and CAM together. And so that was what the early days of Fusion manufacturing were, is how do we better connect the CAD tools to the CAM tools? We look at some of the other acquisitions, a lot of them came from Delcam. FeatureCam is good at feature recognition. It's also good at multitasking and things like mill turn. Products like PowerMill or Power Inspect are good at inspection. PowerMill good at complex milling. NetFab good at additive, and TrueNest good at fabrication. So each of these tools stretch us in a different way, and we've started to bring those technologies together. I love calling out Camplete. That's been a more recent acquisition. It's best in class at machine simulation, but it also gives some of the fun challenges for us. Every single one of these products has machine simulation. So how do we take the best of all of those and put them together for the people using the existing products? Want to disrupt your world. You're running shops with it now. So Fusion gives us the opportunity to bring the best of all of them in without being disruptive to the individual products. Again, that's the other part of the balance. Do we make sure we continue to improve the core 5-axis kernel in PowerMill, but make the big changes in Fusion and how we simulate? And so that's kind of at the heart of what we're doing.
Not to jump in and sales pitch ourselves, jump back there real quick. I know.
Yeah, sure.
We at NextGen actually have a mold wizard that we just released with the open API capabilities that we're releasing a video on next week. But it's actually the ability to quickly design your mold stack up and use things like plastic injection molding from Moldflow, which is absolutely phenomenal, into that power inspect mentality to even inspect it once it's machined. But I'll go ahead and let you get back to it here, Al, and bring us through it.
By the way, I'm glad you're doing it. You kind of asked about the pricing of Fusion before. That's another element too. Some would think, well, why have you brought the price of Fusion down so low compared to other products? For one, the maintenance versus the subscription isn't that far off. But the other thing is that big initial investment that makes it unique for a specific customer. I personally think a customer is better to spend that money on something unique for them so they can work with a partner like you and put that money into making the product more unique. So overall spend might be the same, but they'll get a more custom service because they have a platform that was very accessible to all their users, and they have partners that can extend on top of that open platform and make better use of the allocated budget instead of just buying the same Haas post processor 55 times kind of thing. Anyway, off on a rant.
Now we're getting.
I think you said there's supposed to be 10 minutes.
Sure.
I'm certainly going long.
Oh, that's all
that
right.
said, so when you look at that pinwheel, each one of the products kind of taught us something different. In the first video, we're showing some of the 5-axis. So when we added 5-axis milling, it taught us how to bring multiple toolpath kernels together. We started with having the HSM toolpath kernel in there. Then we added the PowerMill kernel. Many of you started getting access to some of the toolpaths from our partner Module Works. So that really stretched us on how do we get multiple kernels together in a single user experience. It also pushed on saying, how do we get multiple processes together? So in this video, you saw milling in a subtractive sense, turning are the same kind of operations, and inspection toolpaths are the same kind of operations. So that's really what we started to learn as we brought the subtractive technologies together. What's interesting is when we start thinking about bringing fabrication technologies together, it forces us to think more about how do you think about the usage of material? Because that's the primary tool that you need for fabrication, and it might not have been the primary tool that you needed for milling, but I don't think you'd complain as a milling user if you got better CAD tools or you got better fabrication tools. In this case, the way we put it in, designers sometimes actually use a range to figure out how to fit geometry inside of an enclosure. So as you bring these tools together, make them accessible to more people, you open up new workflows too. So that's kind of a fun one you start to learn when we build the muscle memory of bringing fabrication tools in and making it useful to more groups of people. The additive side pulls us in a different direction. So with additive, a lot of what is being done is per part geometry. They're often, I like to think of additive in a more manufacturing sense. They're in many ways they're a 3D printed casting where you're adding geometry and printing a near net shape and then removing it. So there's a lot of geometry manipulation, and so it starts to get us to think about how do you do per process geometry, and even things like simulating how a part might bend when heat's put into the process and creating inverse geometry. And now you're seeing the convergence of additive and subtractive toolpaths. So it pulls us and stretches us and forces the platform to be flexible and scalable in that sense. And I think that's really what this scalability was. How do we make it scalable? We force ourselves to solve problems that stretch it in different directions.
So some would say at this point, it almost seems like Autodesk is down that path of building the single platform tool, even though this platform plays better with other platforms than some of the other softwares I've seen. Is that kind of correct in the thought process?
As a machinist, I like to think of it as the ultimate toolbox. Can I get a toolbox that has all the tools in it that I need and is flexible for me, and ideally also not something that's a walled garden, something where I can put tools from other vendors in it. And that's really Autodesk believes in being open, and Autodesk believes in connecting tools together. We believe in making things more accessible.
Awesome.
I think the other part that I'd speak to, so that last bit was kind of making sure it's scalable on the tools front, the specific strategies. The other piece of it is the automation piece of it, and says, okay, now that we've pulled these pieces together, what kinds of things do I want to automate? Do I want to create a template or a recipe for how to make something? You've probably done some videos on whole part strategies, but there's strategies that don't require selections, where you're really defining your intent of how to make something. Well, if you've defined the intent, then outside of the thick or heavier desktop client of Fusion, here we're showing some prototype work. So again, I'm not committing to any release of being able to deploy operation strategies outside of the client, and then even be able to open them inside the client as if they are authored by a user and make modifications. So as we bring the tools together, we're bringing them together in a way that scales to live in an automated world, and work in hand alongside the user.
So let me pause you real quick. If I saw that correctly, was somebody using the Fusion Teams to apply a template to a part?
That's how it was working in this particular prototype. The main thing to take away from it is you're not using the heavy client. You're using a lighter client to deploy a template. And you could imagine scenarios where in fabrication, you just select all the silhouettes, create a toolpath, and somebody might never even need to look at it.
Well,
But yeah,
I'm
that's
just
what you're seeing.
I'm thinking on my end, just, if you have somebody in the front office that's quoting, I don't know, you may not be able to speak towards this, if the participant team license would be able to do it. But instead of them having to deal with all the headache of being in the heavy client, they could do it straight from a web browser, right?
So this is fun, right? You're already starting to talk about, if you make this technology accessible to more people, how can those people innovate on their jobs? And a lot of the time, that's what innovation is just bringing technologies or things that are exclusive to one person in the past and making it more accessible to more people. I think the other piece, and we should talk through it, is the whole idea of partnerships, and how we do things. At the end of the day, CAM software, and I think this is very important when you're getting CAM software, will it run my machine? The blue lines on the computer screen are just a cartoon. We saw a lot of waste in our legacy CAM businesses where individual post-processor were being made and they were the same. Think of a UMC 500. Seeing many of those individually created for many customers all over the world just made no sense. We can automate that process and make it accessible to more people. So you'll see us work a lot with industry partners. Complete really flexed that muscle very well, working with partners in kind of as Kern and Matsura. We'd already worked very well with Haas. Does that mean that you don't still want to deliver custom posts and custom implementations for users? No, but it should be more specific to that user. It shouldn't just be what's required to have a safe toolpath. We've done some oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say that's awesome. I absolutely love it, to say the least, that we do at NextGen still write custom posts and build custom machine modules for the actual simulation side of things in Fusion. But it is great, and I got to say, when I talk to customers and they're like, hey, do you have a post for our machine? And they're built right into the software, ready to go, makes it a cakewalk. But I think we're starting to look at kind of that Industry 4.0, are we not?
Yeah, so I think it goes it goes to show, like, when we can talk directly to the vendors, and in the first days of it, we go to the vendor and talk to the lead application engineer and find out the settings. So it's not you from NexGenCAM talking to a customer about what the best way to run a machine is. It's corporate Autodesk talking to corporate machine vendor to get the best setting. Where we want to take that further, and we've started doing it with some vendors, is say, why do people even need to talk? Why doesn't the software just talk to the machine? So we've got a standardized post processor, but what coolant codes are available? What sort of things are the other bits of knobs and dials that need to get tweaked? If we can automate those conversations, the humans can have higher value add conversations. So we're trying to help customers automate. We're trying to help we're trying to also automate ourselves so that we can, again, work on higher value problems. And that's just an example of that. I think that segues a little bit, and I'm trying to go a little fast because it's Friday afternoon and my kids have soccer tonight. Anyway, as you think about connecting CAD and CAM, and we have to finish that job. We can't half do CAM. If you can make half your part, the tool's not very useful to you. But as we think about scalability, to me, as we get good at connecting CAD and CAM and building out the tool sets, the next big step is, how do we connect to both the people and the machines on the shop floor and start to have a conversation there? Anytime it's just a yelling match or one person talking, there's not a lot of innovation. But when there's a conversation, we're talking to each other, that to me is when innovation happens. Today, in the programming world, G-code and setup sheets are one directional to the shop floor. You don't really know what the actual runtime on the machine was. You don't really know where the work coordinate system actually is versus where you planned it. You don't really know if the operator turned the feed override down to 50%. And the same mistake happens the next time. So we believe if we can connect and create a conversation between the top floor and the shop floor, there'll be another sort of spur of innovation, and you'll see us start to do work on this front.
I'm a little curious. Is this hinting at the fact that you could, in theory, send NC code from a tablet? Is that a possibility? Not to sell a feature, but is that something we're starting to see? Is that mentality of using a
effectively
tablet?
what we're exploring, and again, we're not committing to timelines, but we're effectively saying there's experiences that an operator would need, and an operator would need access to certain functionality that may not need a full keyboard and mouse. They likely want to be able to send G-code. They likely want to be able to see a rich setup sheet. They may even want to be able to change a speed and feed and a step over and recalculate a toolpath. So it doesn't have to be dumb data or data that can't be changed. But the idea here is there's things that can happen on the shop floor that are specific experiences to the person standing in front of a machine.
So if I had to put it in my own words, it sounds like the days of RS-232 are limited.
I wouldn't say that. What I would say is the days of people having to think about those details are becoming limited. If you think about autopilot, for example, the plane still used flaps, but systems have been automated to run the plane. If we think about G-code, you don't really think about where in the code you turn on cutter comp, and if you're using a GO2 or a GO3, that's still how the machine runs, but we've largely hidden that from the user. My guess is it's the same kind of thing with RS-232. That may still be the way we physically connect to the machine, but hopefully we can automate the process of connecting it so that machinists like you and I don't have to know how to do it.
100%. So awesome. I mean, all this is getting better and better. I love seeing all the new features and everything coming well, I shouldn't say coming to Fusion, a possibility to come to Fusion, but you should
The
not
kinds
buy,
of things we're thinking about.
should not buy based on this slideshow that we're seeing, right?
Right. These are
But
the kinds of things we're thinking about, but you can also look at our track record over the last couple of years and our ability to execute and decide how much of it you think we'll be able to deliver on. With that said, yeah, these are the kinds of things we're thinking about. That I can be transparent about. How quickly we can get it to you is a different question. The other piece, we kind of talked about the tablet and the people. I don't know how many people on the call have used manual measure. I think it's pretty wild. Simple things like using Bluetooth calipers, or as far as using the probe on the machine. Another good example of where unique experiences outside of the thick client could make sense. And so again, these are the kinds of things we're thinking about to connect the data that's captured and authored on the shop floor. How do we connect that in, similar to how we've connected the design and toolpathing experience? That to me is a big opportunity for us.
I would have to say that I show manual inspect. It's one of my favorite things inside of the software, I think, and I show it all the time. And not to put it out there, but if any of our customers has not seen manual inspect by me personally, please reach out. I'm happy to show you the power and the actual capabilities of what it can do for your shop.
Yeah, and you talked about connecting together CAD tools in this video. Actually, we showed some of that. In this case, the other CAD tool is one of ours, Inventor. But there was a model-based dimensioning authored in Inventor that's brought into Fusion, where we created an inspection plan and captured using Bluetooth calipers. That model-based dimension can come from other CAD systems through neutral formats as well. It doesn't just have to be Inventor. So that's kind of, I think, in the area that we're thinking about. There's one other little video I'll maybe kind of show, because I stayed manufacturing focused, and this video is showing the automated modeling. It's showing it in the context of design, but I like showing it because it allows us to think about what do you do as a machinist when you get access to tools that maybe you wouldn't have got access to otherwise. So you look at this and say, well, maybe that doesn't make much sense. But what's really interesting is this works very well for one and done 5-axis parts. And the idea of connecting your fixture to your part and creating tab geometry, automating modeling is actually very good for that. And its geometry end up cutting off afterwards anyway. So I think it's a good speaking point to say, what do we enable when we take technologies and make it more accessible? Because that's really what this Fusion vision is all about. Do we make it more accessible and not let price be the barrier? Do we make it more accessible by having it easy to use? We make it more accessible by having it available on devices that you couldn't get it on before. If you could summarize one thing about what we're doing, it's really about access through many vectors.
That is
and here you're seeing different manufacturing processes as opposed to just those early days of generative or automated modeling that looked very bird bone shape-ish. Now you're getting native geometry that a user can change.
That's great. I love seeing it. Obviously, I love using it day in and day out, and all of our customers that see it, and any future customers that are really curious on what's happening in the world of Fusion. This is great.
All right. So a few more slides. I'll give it a high level. Again, remember that the disclosure I gave you. The first couple slides were really the vision of the future. What is our why? What's our mission statement? The next few will be a little more specific to where we're focused this year. Again, no promises to actually delivering. Different things take different time scales. Some things run years, some things hit walls and never get delivered. But these are the kinds of things that teams are working on. For context, last year, the primary thing teams were working on was 5-axis technology. And I think you've seen that we delivered on that. This year, it's a few different things. The one key focus area, and you'd asked about this, was how do we bring more credibility to turn mill? We have many users doing turn mill. The reality is there's a number of places where we can shore it up. Tooling is one of them. Things like 3D tooling are not supported in the product today. Keyword today. Tool paths, we've got improvements to do specifically to turning tool paths. We also feel like we can do a better job on 4-axis tool paths. And then the last one is machine support. You asked about full machine simulation. You're probably not going to like this answer. I doubt you'll have full machine simulation for turn mill machines this year. Why? Because there's fundamental things we need to do first. The first thing you'll see us do is take decisions that are in the post processor, move them into the CAM software in the machine definition, and shore up how that logic happens, how things like bar pull and part transfer does. So that's the first thing. And then we'll move on to the next thing. What we've learned is if you race to do the thing that makes it look like you're further along than you are, all that does is trick a customer, and there's not a lot of value. So the first thing we're doing is shoring up how you define a machine and making sure that that logic happens primarily in the software in a consistent way across machines. A number of different machines that are contributing to this focus area, and it's our largest focus area this year. The other piece is again better connecting CAD and CAM. You asked about the connection between CAD and CAM. There's more ways we believe you can leverage your intent. That's really the heart of automation. Instead of explicitly picking something, can I define the intent of why I'm doing something to have data flow more intuitively across workflows? Number of things that are happening on the modeling front to help with part families, and things we're doing on the data front to make that accessible outside of our client to other applications we build and applications that third parties build.
So I mean, I hate to pause you, make you go back once again, but although we can't sell on features, it seems like on that middle image, I think I keep seeing a term that I've heard now for 5 or 6 years that people have been wanting. Is that possibly a sneak kind of peek of what configurations could be happening?
We certainly see the need to allow people to streamline their ability to create variants of designs. Again, don't have any timelines, but these are the kinds of things we're thinking about.
100%. It's just great to see what you guys are seeing. You know, the listening in the community, like always. What is the future going to hold? Obviously, getting into this module work part, I'm super pumped for at the end of the day. As
Yep.
barrel cutters too, possibly.
We've been asked. We know it's something that's needed. You need to define the tool. You also need a tool path that supports those kinds of things. It's the kind of thing we're focused on this year, specifically in making sure that we're continuing to build momentum on the milling front in terms of the tools you can define, the types of tool paths, expanding the types of tool paths, and then having more robust machine simulation.
I know we saw that this morning, nonetheless, the more robust machine sim and all the features coming, and it's
you did. So maybe that's good for your community to know, but we invite our partners like NexGenCAM and others to be earlier in the development process and have a view of what's going on so they can support our joint customers better. So yeah, you're awesome. Welcome to those calls.
Awesome nonetheless. So I know we have one more question real quick, but this is probably my favorite question ever. What does the learning curve look like for Fusion 360 in your opinion, Al?
What does a learning curve for Fusion 360 look like? Well, if we're doing our job well, and I'm biased, I think we are, figuring out where icons are and understanding how to move from one 2D toolpath to another, that is relatively intuitive. And I think somebody like you or a YouTube video could teach somebody that fairly well, fairly quickly. I would hope that the primary learning tool thing of Fusion is how do you think parametrically? How do you think of defining your intent for manufacturing versus how do you just get a tool path you want? That to me is the big learning curve. And the other big learning curve is really around I just had a brain lapse there. Is really around the machining process. Because at the end of the day, I believe CAM is just a set of tools to get a job done. What you're really trying to do is manufacture a part. I'll tell a personal story maybe. I remember in college drafting, my drafting teacher told me solid modeling was the worst thing that ever happened to the draftsman. They were right and wrong, because no longer did you think about do the front, top, and side view line up. you're thinking about what your design is. So the role shifted. And to me, the more we automate the process of tool pathing, the more the shift is. And the thing you have to learn is thinking about your process. How do you bake inspection in on the machine and afterwards? How do you think about having part families manufactured instead of individual parts? That to me is that should be the focus of the learning curve, as opposed to just follow my mouse, click here, click here. That's a personal opinion.
I do have to say though, you guys do make such a simple product for somebody like myself to train people in. But my last video we did, we literally just made it about hitting the OK button. And the fact that out of any software I've used, this is the only one to really tell you what it needs or what you're not doing right. It's just crazy to see people in a 4-hour time span go from knowing nothing or coming from another software to being dangerous in a good way, right? Not dangerous crash the machine, but dangerous is in making a part in a couple of hours that you're holding in your hand is just crazy to me.
And so that's why we hope you can then use the time you have to train people on more valuable things, like thinking about a parts manufacturer, giving them a space to sit down in a seat and learn alongside others, both about the product and how to approach making parts. That to me should be the bigger challenge, not where's the open button and how do I find out how to change a step over. Those things, if we're doing our job well, should be intuitive.
Right? So we got one last question. This is a bonus question for everybody. What is the level of technical support after the sale of Fusion 360 look like?
Well, I think that's somewhere where the journey is flexible. For some users, they may not talk to a partner like you. They're going to buy it online. They're going to watch one of your YouTube videos, and that's all that they need, and that's fine. For other users, they want to automate their process and they wanted to work directly with a partner like you to have an enriched experience, and that's something local. I think I know you're in your camper right now, right? You'll go do training all over the place.
100%. We'll drive anywhere and everywhere.
And so they can spend that money and that time on something more tailored. And thankfully the community's big enough now that there's many options, and for each person there's a unique experience. And we hope both with self-paced learning and partners like you, customers can pick what works best for their needs. And I hope you like that answer. It's not just you as a partner either. There's many, right?
No, 100%. You know, there's, as I always tell my customers, is there's a lot of Dodge dealers. What Dodge dealer you pick is up to you. And obviously our door is open to anybody and everybody. And we actually have an ongoing joke in here that usually if you are one of those people that buy Autodesk Direct, watch a couple of YouTube videos, and then you put in a ticket to us, we can almost by name what YouTube videos you watch nowadays, and then help set you on that way to become very successful or to just change a thought process. That's what we love at NexGen is we don't train in Fusion. We train a thought process on how to just program your parts and get the results you're looking for, right?
It's like you just gave me my sales pitch, but I think I've heard you say it. You're not here to show how to hold on to a wrench. You're here to show how to fix a car, right? We shouldn't have to have major amounts of training to show how to pick up a tool and pull the trigger to make a turn. It should be more about how to use the tool, and I think that's where partners like you offer a lot of value.
Awesome. Well, Al, that kind of wraps up our session. Went way longer than 15 minutes as we originally agreed, but I think everybody out there isn't going to be complaining. As always, I have to tell people it's Friday. It's 5 o'clock now at my time, so I'm going to get out of here and go do what I do best, is disappear till Monday morning. But like always, if you guys love stuff like this, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and even get your notifications to see more videos like this. I'll actually even put out there that if you comment a bunch about Al, he's got to respond to those comments. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them out there.
I will respond, and sorry for going long, but if you give me 2 hours to prepare, you can have an hour presentation. You give me a month, you can have a focused 3-minute presentation. So less time to prepare, longer time to get words out.
As always, guys, have a good one. See ya.